I want to share with you a lesson I learned from the tea gardens that helped change the way I think about problems and solutions. So a few years ago, I was traveling to south central China, to Anhui province. And my host took me down a path. I'd flown a long way, I'd driven a long way, and by the time I got there, I was admittedly a little impatient to see the tea bushes. And my host took me down a path that came to a river. And I still couldn't see any tea bushes, and so I said, well, we are here to see tea bushes, aren't we? He said, oh yeah, no, it's just on the other side of the river, and I'm looking, I'm not seeing any bridge, and I wonder if I'm in one of those Zen parables. Well, you've always been with the tea bushes, but they've been on the other side. And so I asked, probably it seemed obvious to me, well, have you thought about building a bridge? Because usually in commerce, you want to have access to what you're growing. And they gave me 4 interesting reasons why they hadn't built a bridge. So first, we're a poor province. We can't just put up a bridge just because that would, facilitate commerce. Second, there's a lot of flooding in this part of China, and at one point of the year, the bridge may be underwater, and another point it may be far away from land. Third, this is an organic tea garden. There's no need for heavy equipment or large bags of chemicals. But the most interesting thing my host told me was that if we build a bridge, then there'll be a road. If there's a road, there's infrastructure. And if there's infrastructure, there's pollution. So instead of a bridge, this guy comes up on a bamboo raft. We got our feet a little bit wet, but we ended up in the tea garden. And for me, I saw that for this community, that what I thought was a problem was actually their solution. No bridge was their way of protecting a pristine source. And of course, in a country like China, or almost anywhere in the developing world, runaway development can really be a threat. And so often, the way we look at our society, we're a very solutions-oriented society. We're very good at coming up with solutions. Organic agriculture is a great contrast, but in general, when we see pests or weeds, we have pesticides and herbicides. Those are our solutions to that problem. And as we now know, we're now creating so many solutions, we can be killing ourselves. This kind of mindset can also be applied to our personal lives. This is a picture of my son Jonah on the first day of kindergarten. 5 years old, ready to take on the world, full of confidence, excitement. But within about 18 months, Jonah started coming home feeling, quiet, depressed, frustrated. He would say, I'm stupid, I can't learn. He wasn't able to read, he wasn't able to write. And we brought him to an educational psychologist who said, well, the way to solve this, the solution for this problem is medication. And my wife and I were a little hesitant to follow that advice. And after years of working with Jonah, we later brought him to a specialist in dyslexia. And we realized this wasn't something that could be solved with medication. This was a different way to look at the world. And it was really a gift, a creative gift. And working with Jonah, we actually helped him be empowered. He graduated with honors and is now in college, and he feels like he's taken over the world. So how do we take this way of thinking? How do we apply it to some of the problems we face in society? Well, first, let's just check in. Where are we headed as a society? And I want to share with you, we've got a theme from China here. There's a Chinese proverb. If we don't change the direction we are headed, we will end up where we are going. It's a truism, right? But where are we going? Well, the United Nations recently ranked the average life expectancy of all the countries in the world. There's about 200 countries in the world. And before I share with you where the United States ranks in average life expectancy, let's just remember, we're the wealthiest nation in the history of the world. We have more advanced knowledge of science and medicine than any civilization in history has ever had. And we spend more per capita than any nation spends. But we're not number one. We're not number two. We're number 40. So what does that say about our lifestyles, about our diets, about our relationship to the natural world, about our relationship to each other? It means we're in the wrong direction, and it has to change. So how's it going to change? Well, if you've been following the headlines, you're probably going to agree with me. The government isn't likely to make that change. Nonprofits are important, but it takes more. And in a lot of ways, big business is also not going to be able to change because, by definition, big business is invested in the direction we are headed. Well, one way to think about it, some people would say business in many ways is part of the problem. but problems sometimes can be solutions. And if you had told me 16 years ago, I living in Bethesda, Maryland, and I'd be working with an organization that's helping to eliminate billions of calories from the American diet and helping to promote the spread of organic agriculture and helping spread fair trade labor standards in the developing world, I would say, oh, that sounds amazing. What's the NGO, what's the nonprofit or government entity I'm involved with? I never would have guessed that it could be a beverage company, let alone one that is now part of the Coca-Cola company, let alone one that delivered a 26 times return to its original investors. But that's the journey that we've been on with Honest Tea, and briefly I'll just share with you a bit of the story. I was running in Central Park, and I went, after the run, I was thirsty. I went to a beverage cooler, and I felt like there was nothing there. I was with a friend of mine from college. He said, what do you mean there's nothing here? There's hundreds of options. I said, yeah, but they've all got either 100 calories or 0 calories. When I make tea at home, I don't put in 5 teaspoons of sugar, but maybe 1 or 2. Why isn't there a drink like that? And I got back in touch with my professor from the Yale School of Management, Barry Nalebuff, and I said, you remember when I was your student, we had talked about how there was something missing? I think I'm ready to do something about it. And Barry had just come back from India. He'd done a case study of the tea industry, and among the many insights he had come up with was the name, Honest Tea. And for me, that kind of felt like the clouds were parting. That's it. That's the way to connect a business to a social enterprise, to a mission-driven organization. So we registered the name Honest Tea, but we registered it 2 ways, Honest Tea, 2 words, and then we registered as HONESTEA. And within a few weeks, we heard back from Nestee's trademark lawyer who said, well, you're trying to market a product called Honest Tea. And we're not comfortable with that. I said, well, I don't think I'm comfortable with marketing Honest Tea either. So we withdrew that application. And I said, well, let's just go with Honest Tea. And so Barry came to my house in Bethesda. We brewed up 5 thermoses of tea, and we got an empty Snapple bottle, and we pasted a label on it. And we brought it to the Whole Foods buying office in Rockville, Maryland, and said, we want to sell this in your store. And the buyer said, great, we'll take 15,000 bottles. And we never made it anywhere but my kitchen, so that was a little scary, but we figured out how to make the product, and we started to grow. We first went into the natural foods channel, and over the course of a few months became the best-selling tea in the local Whole Foods stores, and then we expanded to other natural food stores and to some of the coasts. But what happened as we grew was we found our growth was going to be capped by the distribution challenges. We were approached by national chains like Safeway that said, we want your product in all our stores. And we said, well, great, we've got the distribution for the Mid-Atlantic, we've got the distribution for California. And they said, well, what about Chicago? What about Texas? And we didn't have an answer. So we were approached by several international food and beverage companies, and in 2008, we agreed to take in a 40% investment from the Coca-Cola company. And what it helped do was help scale the business. It helped us reach new customers. And of course, that kind of partnership may raise some questions. They're not exactly the most likely partners, an organic fair trade tea company and a large multinational that doesn't sell products like that. So what has it meant to partner with a Coca-Cola company? Well, when Coke first invested, just before they invested, Honest Tea was in about 15,000 stores. Today we're in over 100,000 stores. So now we start to be able to change the American diet because we have access to more consumers. What about in terms of our purchasing? Well, before Coke invested, we were buying about 800,000 pounds a year of organic ingredients. This year we'll buy over 5 million pounds of organic ingredients. So now we start to have an impact on communities around the world that are looking at their environment and thinking about, is it worth making the investment in organic? Well, this is where the growth is, at least for us. And it is different when I go to a tea garden in India or China. It's not just some guy working out of his kitchen in Bethesda. Now it's somebody who's part of the Coca-Cola company saying, this is where our growth is. We want you to join us. And funny little postscript to what happened in the tea garden in China. It's a fair trade tea garden, so a portion of our money goes back to the community for them to invest in new things. And when I heard that, our money was going to this tea garden, I said, oh no, I hope they don't build a bridge. They actually bought a boat. So the garden is still protected. So this is work that is exciting to do, but it's challenging to do. I don't want to I don't sugarcoat anything, but I definitely don't want to sugarcoat the story because there's a lot of inertia. There's a lot of direction. We're going against the direction we're headed. And so that can be challenging. It can be stressful. I remember early on in the company, we had just made our first delivery to Whole Foods. And I was at a family picnic, and I was eating a piece of pizza, and I felt something crunchy in my mouth. And I said, well, there's not supposed to be anything crunchy in pizza. It turned out it was my tooth that had cracked. And so I went to the dentist, and she looked at it and she said, well, I can tell you're grinding your teeth at night. Are you under any stress? I said, I guess you could say that. She said, well, you have two options. You can try deep breathing and yoga, turn the lights low before you go to bed, or I can fit you for a night guard. Your teeth will still grind, but there'll be that buffer. I said, I think I'm going to need the night guard, and I'm still wearing a night guard, so there's still challenges that we face. But it is work that's important to do to change the direction our society is headed. And you know, before I started Honest Tea, there were those who said, why would you ever try to launch a company in this industry that's so competitive with so many products? And this can't be done. And then after Coca-Cola invested, they said, why would you take this mission-driven organization and make it part of a multinational? You're going to lose your soul. You're going to lose what you stand for. It can't be done. And if you come to our office in Bethesda, Maryland, the first thing you see is this proverb. It's another Chinese proverb. It says, those who say it cannot be done should not interrupt the people doing it. So change can come in our society, and it's really entrepreneurs who can find new directions, who take risks. And it is challenging to do, but when they succeed, when they can find a way to connect with consumers, then big companies will follow. And it is important to really make sure it's commercially successful. If we had stayed as a niche product, I might have felt nice about myself, but we wouldn't have attracted a large company to say, this is an exciting way for us to change. This is challenging work, it's important work, and our Tea Party is just getting started. Thank you very much.